I'm playing with this and increasingly drawn into it. I just don't have the time to follow up all the possibilities that are emerging. This is one of those technologies where you have the swarming effect in innovation, which is there's something good, my goodness, let's try it. So entrepreneurs are setting up new businesses every day. Many of their offers have relevance for education. Not everything's going to work. What we know about innovation is you have this fluid phase, everything bubbles up, but eventually it coalesces around a few key things, what we call the dominant design. We're nowhere near that in education yet. We're still at that early exploring stage. So which positive thing do I see? I guess several. The first thing is it helps me structure my thinking. Now, I'll explain that. When I'm a teacher, I'm trying to imagine how can I get this message across? I know the stuff, at least I hope I know the stuff by now. I need to think, how will someone like you learn it? So I have to think my way through. And so a lot of my work is learning design. How to take knowledge, how to chunk it up, how to make it available, that kind of process. It's great to have an assistant like AI, not least because it can do it in creative ways. I could say, here's a concept I want to get across. Can you make a game out of it? Or can you make an interactive simulation? Or can you give me 10 examples? And it does this. It does this very fast. That's one of the great skills because it's got a deep knowledge base. So that's certainly one. The second, I think, for me, is the ability to create a guide for students. My problem as a teacher, I stand in front of a class of maybe 100 students, maybe more these days, and I'm broadcasting. I'm hoping that they're hearing the message in the ways that they need to hear it. Now, that's a pretty ambitious expectation. 100 people, their learning styles are different, their backgrounds are different. It's very hard to hit 100 targets. So what I really want is to personalize the learning. The trouble is there isn't enough time in the day for me to do that with each individual. But with AI, I can give them a coach, a personal coach, and that AI can act as their guide through the material. So what I'm experimenting with is to feed it my textbooks. So there's the knowledge. This is what I'm trying to get across. And there's my learning designs and other things. But your job is to act as a coach for these students. So learn this yourself so you have the knowledge base, and then help the students find their way. Check that they're learning so you can actually interact with them, be constructive in your feedback, but essentially it's a wonderful opportunity. It goes right back to the days of the early universities, back in the sort of 14th century, where you'd have tutorials, where the interaction was one-on-one or one on a small group, and you could have the conversations and really understand the student needs. That's a wonderful opportunity. And I'm not there yet, but that's the kind of experiment that I and many other people are trying. And I think that will transform some of the educational experience in the future in a very positive direction. I think one of the really big ones, if I speak on behalf of my colleagues, assessment. The problem is, the challenge we have is students have to submit some kind of essay or some examination. They have to sort of demonstrate that they have absorbed some knowledge from us. And that's hard work for us because with lots and lots of students, we have to somehow read, assess, and give constructive feedback. If we're doing our job right as teachers, we need to help the students learn, to guide them, to shape them, to encourage them, to challenge them. That whole coaching process must be individual. It will vary student to student. That involves a huge amount of, it's not just marking in the terms of allocating a grade, it's so much more. There isn't enough time in the day to do it. And I know a lot of universities will farm that out. They'll actually recruit an army of part-time workers who may be ex-teachers, retired teachers, who might help with that. That's a big challenge, and I think that's a big opportunity. Because if we can teach AI, and we can, if it can learn the assessment rubric, what are the criteria whereby we would say that's a really good answer, or yeah, but have you thought about this kind of personalized feedback. If we can teach the AI, those are what we're looking for, and then allow it to look at the essays, it probably is going to be able to do quite a good job. Well, sorry, I know it's able to do a good job already of giving a credible grade and justifying the grade it's given and providing constructive feedback on how to improve that grade. So I think from my colleagues' and myself's point of view, that's a really powerful aid. There are a couple. The first obvious one is students aren't stupid and they're already using it. So we're trying to sort of, and I know this is a big conversation in many universities, control for students, instead of getting an essay mill or someone else to write their essay for them, now get GPT or another AI to write it for them. Students are already doing that. And they're very clever, and they know that our plagiarism checkers and others may not spot this. So it's crazy for us to try and, we say, close the stable door after the horse has bolted. The horse is already gone. What we have to do is to think creatively about working with the students to design ways in which we can both use this great resource to create a good learning experience. So by all means, use this in your research to explore a particular theme that I've been trying to teach you. So use an AI to help you explore that, do some research, use it to help you frame it, structure it. Don't use it to replace you, because what's the point of that? And that's perhaps the challenge, is we've got to stop seeing education as a supermarket where the student goes in and grabs what they can and tries to get out by paying as little as possible. That's not really why people go to university. They want to learn. So if we accept that premise, then we could start saying, well, how do we creatively design ways where students can use the AI to deepen their learning experience? And indeed, at the limit, to come back and challenge us. The best classes I have are the ones where the students come to me with questions. Instead of broadcasting, turn the model around. And I get a question there and a question there. Wow. And sometimes I can't answer them, and that's good for me. It keeps me on my toes. So I think there's this big challenge around how we could use and work with the students and the technology. Do I think that AI will help particularly those students who are, for whatever reasons, weaker students? And there may be all sorts of reasons behind that, but it's a really important question. And I think, yes, I think that's one of the great things that AI can offer. If you think of it, it's an amplifier. I've said several times, there's not enough of me to go around. If I've got 100 students, I cannot spend, there just aren't enough minutes in the day, I cannot spend the detailed time with all of them. And I know this is the experience of many colleagues, in a class, you tend to point out and work with the students who are asking questions, you have an interaction. That means there's probably quite a few who are in the background who aren't being heard, who may not quite understand. And unless you're really acute and you can actually see by their body language they're not getting it, you may not help them. So what can AI do? It's the super tutor, if you like, the old tutorial model. It's the coach. And it says, actually, what is it that you don't understand? And if you had the chance to, and you can make up whatever prompts you want. So the great thing, as we've already seen, it's a conversational device. Unlike a lot of computer programs where you need to write in language or code and so on, talk to it. Quite literally, you can talk. You don't even have to type anything these days. Most of these AIs now have a good vocal interface. So you can talk to it, just like having your own private tutor. This is only between us, so you can confess, actually, I didn't understand a word of what that John Bessant said, and so on. I haven't understood all. Fine. So what didn't you answer? What would you? So it's that having a good critical friend, it's going to sort of push you and say, you really perhaps need to read more of this, or you need to look at that further, and it will guide you. Now, that's a wonderful amplifier to what I'd love to think I was still able to do as a teacher, but I just don't have the capacity for. And I think that's particularly when we take the fact that our student intake is no longer just from one area. We're talking of a global student population, and many of those might even be online. You've got so much variety there. So the possibilities for a personal tutor, a super tutor, I think are really big. It works for me because this is a partner. and it's embracing it as a partner. So first of all, I've got to get to know my partner, and I'm still pretty much at that stage. I'm just seeing what can it do. I'm playing in the way we talked about earlier. I'm doing some experiments. When I do those experiments with classes, I let the students know. So I'm not doing it to them. I'm trying to engage them and recruit them to give me feedback on, is this helpful? Is it moving us in the right direction? How can we, as a system, learn? Some of the specific things, I'm very concerned to try and get my message across. It's been the story of my life, so I've written books, I've made films, I've done various things. I even sing songs about innovation. There are ways of trying to get the message across. So I'm experimenting with creative ways, because as I've given some examples, AI can play with all sorts of things. So we could write an opera and get everybody to sing their way through the lecture, or we could play a game or whatever. And AI can help amplify those experiments. And with the feedback from the students, we can begin to create very different learning experiences. I think the big one for me, and I'm still trying to work out how to deploy it, is this idea of the personal tutor. So I'm experimenting a lot. I've fed ChatGPT is the one I use particularly. I've fed it my textbook, mouthful by mouthful, but it now hopefully knows. And I ask it, I say, now this book is say 300 pages long. Can you give me a 3,000 word summary with key bullet points about what John Bessant says about innovation? And it seems to have the knowledge base. So I've built that version. And then the question is, now act as a coach. And I've tried to pretend to be, and I've recruited a few students to use the coach that I'm building. So in a sense, one of the things you can do these days with AI is design your own GPTs, your own applications, and it can then act in that fashion. So I've kind of created this co-pilot for the students, and I'm experimenting with that. I'm also trying to devise a robust assessment system where AI can mark student work in a way which is constructive for them, that gives them useful feedback, but is also useful for me because it takes out some of the hard time and effort, but also that would then satisfy my institution in terms of the quality standards and the rest. So I'm experimenting in these sorts of areas. I think in the future, there's all sorts of new design possibilities. And as I say, it's a full-time job almost, keeping track of the new possibilities that AI is now offering. I think on one hand, I'm a professor of innovation. And if I wasn't playing with this, they would be annoyed. So I think it gives me some credibility that I am at least trying to innovate my own activity. So I think that's important. I think the second is they're kind of saying, yeah, well, we've already been here waiting for you to catch up, because they are using this. They're not stupid. So they're already using, in all sorts of things, AI, certainly to help them research essays, some of them to write essays and other things. That's already happening. So in a sense, we're catching up with them, and that's been the sort of feedback. Then it becomes fun doing the shared experiments, because you can say, let's try and do this in a different fashion. And what I've been trying for some time to do is what's called the flipped classroom approach, which is I try and get the students to prepare, whether it's reading or watching a video or listening to a podcast, but prepare the material that I've already created for them so that they come to the classroom with questions, with ideas, with insights. And then we use the classroom time to interact around it. And that's the space where bringing in the fun part of AI, which is let's play a game or let's do a dance or let's write a song, that starts to become fun. It's very early days. I wouldn't say I've done large-scale trials, not least because, back to my point, the institution, it still likes stuff done in the way it's always done it. So the students and the curriculum and all the rest are quite fixed. To change that is going to take time. So we're doing experiments at the moment, but so far it's been quite positive feedback. I think that the heart of it is to know yourself, that old Greek thing, the Delphic oracle, know thyself. That's a really important message. What is my role as an educator? I don't think personally it's about broadcasting. I think it's about understanding where you are as a student, and you spread across many, many varieties and numbers. So understanding if I use the word market, I don't mean that in a business school sense, but understanding the demand side. What do you need? So what's my role in that? Question number one. So starts with some self-reflection. What have I done well that I'd like to keep doing? What has always been a challenge, like the individualization of the tutorials that I've mentioned, like the assessment headache, which is a problem, and so on. But what do I know? What do I do well? What would I like to do better? Once I understand that, then I've got this incredibly capable co-pilot who also responds best when I can give it, again, it's very hard to talk about it or him or her, but anyway, but my partner, my co-pilot, what can I give them? The technical word is prompt at the moment, but how can I get it to help me do the things that I'd like more help with? So it's a learning process, and that's true not just in education. Right now we're learning about what are the right prompts? And I come back to something I said earlier. We don't know, so experiment, try them out. But learning what this thing can do and learning how to get it to do it well. The beauty of it is, we talk about machine learning, and there's a clue there. It's a learning system. So the beauty of it is, if it doesn't give you quite what you want, give it another prompt. Give it feedback, have a conversation with it so that it gets closer and closer to what can help you.